On the last few videos, we've been talking about how to make a plan to make you succeed on the mastery system. Now, on this video, we're going to talk about how to actually implement this plan in a successful way. Now, when you're actually starting to learn the material, I suggest you always do what we call the preparatory stage. People learn better when you make connections to the material. So it's easier to learn if you activate prior knowledge or experiences which relate to what you're going to be learning. For example, if you're going to study genetics, it helps to kind of like think about what you already know about genetics before you actually start learning new material on genetics to actually do better on learning this material, because you're going to connect your new knowledge with the prior knowledge you already have. That's a very important step that a lot of people skip. And the best way to do this is to use pre-reading strategies or warm-up activities to actually warm you up to the topic. I suggest you consult with your teacher, in your case, if you're one of my students, with me, or with any pre-reading strategies you already know about, and to always implement a warm-up before you start any topic. For example, just for the sake of this video, to give you an example, KWL chart, where you write down all you know already about the topic, things you're curious about learning about, and then at the end, you're going to write down what you've learned about it. So you see, that kind of warm-up activity will light your candle up in your brain to actually help you process the information of what's coming up. You can also take pre-quizzes, pre-tests, just to see if you know anything about the topic already. There's a lot of different strategies you can do, and throughout the year, we'll do my best to actually teach you different kinds of strategies and that you can do as warm-up activities or pre-reading strategies to actually help you learn better once you actually start. So I will start any topic, at least with a 10 to 15 minute warm-up activity to get me ready for this. Also, remember to have your lecture guide with you at all times, because you need to know what you need to know. You need to know what's expected of you. So without the lecture guide, you don't know what you need to know, and that's a problem. You've got to have it at all times. And also remember that different strategies work better for different people. So you got to keep changing things up and try different things to find things that work the best for you. So if I say, KWR chart works for me, well, maybe it doesn't work for you. Maybe you need to do something else instead, Maybe listen to a song about the topic to kind of like warm you up to it. Maybe watch a crazy demonstration about it. Maybe do a warm-up, a lab or something like that. Anything like that warms you up to the topic might actually help you out. And we're going to try to do that as much as we can about that. Okay? Once you actually go through that, okay, you're going to go to a stage now of collecting information. Now, remember that you're doing this one chunk at a time. You do not want to sit down one day and learn the whole topic. Don't do that unless you only have one day to learn the topic according to the pace you're going at. Some kids at honors classes, like AP classes, for example, that's the kind of pace you have to set up on. One day to learn the chapter. So in that kind of scenario, then yes, you do the whole thing. But if you are splitting the topic into chunks, you learn one chunk at a time, and you're going to do this for one chunk at a time. So you don't collect information on the second chunk until you've already learned the first chunk. We'll talk about that. Now, if you're using, for example, the videos from the video lecture series which come along with the flipped classroom, that is guaranteed to have all the information that I want you to know about the topic. And on the videos, I will have explanations that will help you make sense out of the information and make connections to the information, which ultimately might be your best resource to actually get the information. Guys, most kids still need a teacher, someone to present you the material. The only difference of the system is that the content delivery is being done at home. So it's very important for you to do that. But for some people, the video might be too hard or too time-consuming or unnecessary for them to learn. Now, I am talking about 10% of the people here, guys. 90% of you have to watch those videos. And remember that you cannot say it doesn't work for you unless you tried it, unless you actually watched it, taking notes, and doing everything you're supposed to do to actually learn. All right? But if the videos are too hard for you or they don't work for you, you might want to try different options, or at least you might want to try maybe to start with something easier and build yourself up to the point where the video is going to make sense to you. Different people learn different ways, so maybe a lecture is not for you, maybe you can do different things. So here's some of the options available through my website and through the classroom resources that you can use to actually learn the material. You can look at drawings, pictures, visual diagrams, and other things like that available on your textbook, online, or on the website. And if I don't have a drawing to explain photosynthesis, Google it up, You can also use other teachers' resources. You can use Google to find resources, or you can search YouTube for videos, which are not my videos, Or you can actually go to my YouTube channel where I have links to channels of other biology teachers or other earth-based science teachers or other physics teachers which actually teach what I'm trying to teach you. Also, you can look at the short and videos and animations which are available on my website, which will teach you the concept really, really short and easy, and I like them a lot. They're available on my website as well. You can also read the notes, extra notes, or power notes, which are usually simpler than the material that I'm presenting on the lecture series. You can use the online textbook, which I have available on my website through biology links. You can use the physical textbook that we have available in the class. You can use the publisher portal, which I have available to the biology links, or you can use the audiobook, which I have available to the biology links in my website. You can also search Google for your own resources, or you can use the wiki space that we create together as a part of a collaborative classroom effort to find the information. I don't care what you do, and I don't care if you have to start with by looking at drawings before you can actually read. I don't care what you need to do to actually collect the information, as long as you collect the information that you need. You are responsible for learning the material that's in that chunk of the lecture guide. And as you collect information, write down things. You're going to write down your own notes on the information. You're going to make your own drawings. You're going to make your own images. You're going to make your own notes. You're going to write down questions of things you don't understand and you need to ask about. You know, and when you have those questions, you can get immediate response to those questions by Googling up the answer, or you can write an email to the teacher or to a friend, or you can call a friend or to a teacher, or you can text the friend or a teacher, or you can discuss it in class once you see me again. But whatever you're going to do, you have to get to collecting information on the topic and identifying things you need to help with as you do it. That is what you do at this stage of the learning process. Then, remember, careful when you're getting your information from. Never use just one source. Always use multiple sources, and that's the beauty about the internet. If you trust just my lecture, for example, it's bound to have mistakes on it because no one's perfect. Same thing about websites, same thing about any notes or things like that. So use multiple sources to collide the information together and compile things in a way that you're actually going to understand the terms on the lecture guide. Now, though it is okay for you to start reading something easier, such as the textbook or the power notes or the online portal, things like that, ultimately you need to get to the harder stuff, which is what I'm actually teaching in the videos, all right? Or what are things I'm requiring on the lecture guide. So if you just study the power notes, you're not going to be ready because the lecture guide goes beyond the power notes. It goes beyond the online portal. It goes beyond the textbook. So you can start with that easy stuff, but you've got to push yourself to eventually get to the hard stuff. Also, collect information means you must take notes. We talked about this. I suggest you draw things, write down your thoughts, write down things that help you remember things, examples that you saw, questions that you have, or anything at all that will help you learn this material later. Because right now, you're not actually studying yet. You're just collecting the information. It's just the first stage to actually get you started with the learning process. Then you get to actual learning. Learning information is getting information from your paper where you collected it into your head. And remember, you're doing this one chunk at a time. Ideally, you're going to do this on the same day you collected the information, or on the very next day if you didn't have time. But what you should do is use a learning strategy that works best for you to get information from your notes into your brain. Now, Mr. Lima, what are you talking about? Use a learning strategy. Oh, that's up to you. Different people learn better in different ways. And different strategies work better for different people. So you got to change things up to find out what works best for you. So for example, one person might learn better by creating a song where she puts the key terms in a song to help her learn. Another person might learn better by creating a dance. Another person might learn better by writing it over and over again. Another person might learn better by teaching it out loud to himself or to a friend. Another person might learn better by working together with a partner. There's a lot of learning strategies, and throughout the year I'm going to be teaching you different learning strategies to actually help you learn. But try to find one that caters to you, the kind of learner that you are. If you are, remember the survey that we took at the beginning of the year, and if you haven't taken it, take it now to help determine what kind of learner you are. Are you an auditory learner? Are you an artistic learner? If you're an artistic learner, maybe you want to draw things. Maybe you want to look at drawings. I don't care how you do it. You got to get that information in your brain, and you got to use a strategy to do that. If you do the same thing somebody else did, it's probably not going to work for you. Now, regardless of what you do to learn the information, at the end, you got a self-quiz to make sure that you know what you're supposed to know. So at the very end of the day, what you're going to be doing is you're going to use the lecture guide or some other self-quizzing tool like a flashcard, a study list, or a foldable, and I teach you on how to do that in class or on other videos. to self-quiz. So what I mean by that is you've got to find out which words I know, which words I still got to review, or which concepts I got to actually ask someone else to help me, either a teacher or a friend, because I'm stuck with this. So remember that. The plus sign, if you're doing the lecture guide, for example, let's go to the lecture guide to do an example. So the lecture guide that we were talking about on the earthquake lecture series. So if you take the earthquake lecture guide, for example, what you want to do is you literally want to get, okay, so what is an earthquake? Oh, that's when, the ground shakes because of a variety of reasons. Okay, so then make a plus sign there. Okay, what's stress? Okay, so stress is the amount of pressure that's put on a rock when it can't budge, which creates strain, which is the change in the rock. Okay, so I knew that. I'm not really sure what a fault is. Even though I collected information and studied it, I still don't know what it is. So I'm going to put a negative sign. And you got to be vicious. You got to be mean to yourself. If you don't know exactly what this means, and if you have to think for too long before you can come up with the answer, in other words, if you have to wait more than 10 seconds to think about the answer, and if your answer is not exactly what it's supposed to be, you got to put that negative sign there. Okay? And let's say today you are working on, say, that chunk right there. And you're going to go through all of these words, making plus and negative signs. And then when you're done, you go back to your negative signs and work on them over and over again until they're plus signs. And if there's a word you don't understand, you either underline it or put a star next to it. And then you come to Mr. Class and ask me about it, or email me about it, or ask a friend about it. But you do what you need to do to self-quiz to make sure that you've learned what you're supposed to learn for that topic. And if you do this process, at each day, you collect the information for that chunk. Each day, you study the chunk. Each day, you self-quiz that chunk. And you do this day after day in manageable small chunks. You can succeed in the mastery system. And that's how you do it. So remember, repeat this process every day until you complete all the blocks. On the last day, you go backwards and review all the blocks to make sure you know all the material. And if you have time after you do all of this, before you have to actually take the quiz, do some practice to make sure you know the material. Go to the website and download the millions of options that I have. Got worksheets, got quizzes, got concept review, self-tests. You got virtual labs, web quests, a million different options in the website. You can look at these options in something that's called the assignment guide and see things you can do for practice. But remember, this is a very important rule. Do not attempt practice before learning the material. Before you actually collect the information, before you learn the information, before you quiz yourself with the information. If you spend a lot of time working on a crossword puzzle because you have to look up all the answers, you wasted learning time. You could have been practicing, quizzing, and collecting information instead. Pay attention to what I'm saying. When you do a crossword puzzle, okay, and you take an hour to do it because you have to look up all the answers, you wasted that hour. Because I'll tell you what, how many times did you practice that word in that hour? Once. Because you looked it up once, you copied from the web, and you wrote it down. You didn't even learn anything. You barely even practiced it. If instead you had collected all the information first, studied all the information, quiz yourself with the information to make sure you know it. When you picked up that crossword puzzle to do it, you do it in 10 minutes. You do it in 10 minutes because you know the stuff already. So that crossword puzzle becomes not how you learn, but how you check that you have learned it. That's practice, and that's what you do. And that's actually what level 4 in class is supposed to be like, to demonstrate that you have learned it. To do that practice, to actually consolidate your learning, repeat the material, to increase retention, and actually prove that you've learned, prove that you mastered the material. If you do it instead, if you learn through worksheets, through things like study guides, through things like that, instead of learning more, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be learning less and much slower than you would have if you actually learned first and then attempted the practice. And also remember this. If you completed a test yesterday, but you're not sure if you passed the topic yet because I haven't graded the test, nothing is stopping you from starting to study the next topic already. Likewise, if you're done studying, but you still have a day, so you're done studying on Saturday, but you still have Sunday before you do the topic, there's nothing stopping you to actually start doing practice and earning level 4 and 5 mastery points. All right? And remember that before you actually can take the quiz, you have to do the reading check online. And if you, hopefully you're doing this at home to avoid wasting class time, and you cannot take the quiz until you do it. If you take the quiz before you do it, the quiz will not count. That is how you learned. On the next video, we're going to talk about how to spend class time and how to plan to spend class time wisely. But remember, all we talked about here is supposed to be home learning, unless you have time to spend one day studying in class. See you guys later.